now we're going to move to hear from Cornish Metals. We have Don Turvey, who is the new CEO of Cornish Metals, going to tell us about their South Crofty project in the UK.
Right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be with some 10 people. So I'm new in this game, been at it for almost 2 months. What I really find interesting about tin is just how robust the fundamentals are in this market. And I think that makes the tin project so exciting. And I realize that we're not in competition. I think there's space for everybody, although one of my colleagues mentioned that we may be in competition for funding. But as far as the market is concerned, it looks like there's space for all. If one looks at our shareholding, I think we're very privileged to have Vision Blue Resources as our core cornerstone investor. They put in £25 million in 2022, with a capital raise of £40 million. We used that to build a water treatment plant. We also started to refurbish our existing shaft, and we also completed a PEA study, which was published in April this year. So South Crofty is 100% owned by Cornish Metals. I think we're based in a historic tin mining district. Lots of history there. We're fully permitted, which means we can start construction the moment we've got the cash. We're sitting with existing infrastructure, which is a huge benefit. We have 4 shafts that we can use. We have over 500 kilometers of underground development that we could have access to. So it's essentially opening up an old mine. We have access to transportation routes. If you stand in South Crofty, you can literally see the bay. We have power infrastructure. The plan is it's an underground operation, which will have minimal impact on surface. All our tailings will go underground. Because of the fact that we've built a water treatment plant, the Red River got its name from the color of the water that went into there. Now it's clean. And I think we've got a lot of benefit from the local community on this, especially from an environmental perspective. Very supportive. I mean, this I find very, very interesting. Most mining companies face some challenges with their local communities and with NGOs and all sorts of parties that's something to say about your business. In this case, we have overwhelming support from our local communities. They want to see the mine up and running. From the governmental perspective, even the parties that needs to approve things on our side from a planning permission, they're really working with us to make this happen, which is quite unique, I believe. We've got a very high-grade project, and let's jump into the next one. I think you've already seen the slide. We're already up there, one of the highest grade non-producing tin resources in the world. And as my previous speaker also said, we're also working towards getting that bugable bigger and to the right-hand side from a resource perspective. And I think there's a lot more tin down there than people realize. There's a long production history. Obviously, it doesn't look like that today. We're not going to leave it like that as well. So this is what the old guys left, I think, for generations to follow. So if you look at the underground mine of South Crofty, it's basically we're going to be mining in the granite, which is the pure tin side. Again, in vast workings that's been there for the last 100 years. The shaft that we're reopening started in 1904. But again, lots of resource still left. And I'll show you just how they mined in the past. So our focus is going to be on the granite, which is the pure tin. This is our mining right area. We have a mining right that will last until 2071. The yellow there is existing infrastructure that we have access to. The yellow outline there is the surface area that we own, which means we can put all our infrastructure that we need there, which is we have the permit to build a processing plant. Obviously, we already have the existing permit for the water treatment plant and all the shafts that we need. So the plan is to upgrade 2 of those shafts. One is for mini material and also for ore transport. The other one would be for a second egress from the mine, and the other, and also for ventilation. All the other shafts, the plan is to use that for ventilation. I mean, you can see just the huge benefit that you have to have existing infrastructure. You don't have to sink shafts. Yes, we need to do development because the plan is to convert the mine from historic mining methodology to highly mechanized. So we need access to that, and we're going to develop ramps to the different levels. So we put out the PEA in April this year, and you'll see there that we have an NPV, targeting NPV of about 200 million, 30% IRR. We're looking at producing 4,700 tons of tin per year for a mine life of 14 years. It's interesting how many people talk about 14 years. So there's something about that. If you look at the all-in sustaining cost, we reckon we're going to be at the low end of the cost curve. And I think, you know, as producers, that's the only thing we can manage. We can't manage the tin price. Our role is to make sure that we can get the production out, we're productive, and we manage our cost. And obviously, we need to do it safely and responsibly. As far as the support is from the locals, I already mentioned that. The plan is to employ about 300 people full-time on the mine, highly paid people. We already have 80 people on site at the moment. Half of them are miners that are currently busy with our shaft refurbishment. But the impact on the bigger community will be huge. There's a multiplier effect, and obviously because we're bringing in new equipment, there's going to be that support base that needs to be set up in the local community to support this operation. You know, I mentioned to the team that to run an underground mine, you need about, from a procurement perspective, 50,000 items to run a mine. So you can just imagine all of that needs to come from as close as possible to the mine. So I think there's going to be a huge benefit to the local community. So we're looking at tin production over the 14 years. And I mean, there's a peak area around the 2 to 6 years. And obviously that's exciting. Nobody's excited about the tail off, where it looks like, and that's basically because of the resources in the PEA. So we've recently put out an exploration target where we extrapolated our resource, and because we know so much about it, we have all the data of the historic mine, and we've basically used that to extrapolate what it could look like going forward. So at the moment, we're sitting with around 6 million tons. The plan is to mine the bottom end of this. We're not going to be, this is going to be towards the end of the life of the mine, but it basically extends on strike and on dip. And because we know so much about what happens on the top, we know that mineralization basically comes from the bottom up. So we know where these things are going. And there's a huge resource still to be found down there. If you look at the past, and this we just took from 1974, and the way these guys did it in the past, they didn't do massive drilling. They basically They developed on load, and in 1974, they just had over 3 years of mine life left. They carried on mining, and by the time they closed the mine in 1998, they had 4.5 years mine life. So they managed to replace every ton they mined and even increased. And this, if you look at the graph, this was in a very depressed tin market. So South Crofty was one of the last mines that closed, and you can just see how robust the mine was, even in those days, with the technology that they used. They were able to keep the mine going long after others had to close. So our idea is that this trend will continue going forward. So we did a piece of work around just looking at, because we have all the information on all the developments. So these guys, what they did on a daily basis, they took face samples. We have all their data, and on every load. So what we did was we extrapolated that and say, listen, if on strike and down dip, and as one go forward, then you can change your indicated or your inferred, convert that into indicated, and that will basically continue. So we have access not only to the resource. Remember, when the mine closed in 1998, they closed in production. They were literally in the faces. There were reserves left at the time. So that's what we have access to when we start up the mine. Our COO, actually, we use that. There's a load that was mined 4 days before the close of the mine with a tin quality of 24%. You can imagine how devastated the people were when they had to close the mine. They were right in some of the richest areas in Cornwall. So the orange really shows the loads that we used in our PEA. And we basically said, well, what about if we expand them on strike and down dip? We managed to increase the resource by another 6 million, up to 13 million tons, with a grade of 0.5 to 1.8%. And that excludes all the other resources in the south. So it's really, you can see, not only can we double, we could potentially treble the life of the mine. And that's what they did in the past. So this we see as a multi-generational asset. It's going to continue for decades because the resource is there. And this isn't just near mine, which means it's close to the existing shaft. We're not talking about other development. It's close to the existing shaft. Our approach to sustainability is obviously key from an environmental point of view. I already talked about discharging water, clean water into the river now, using 100% renewable energy. We have an opportunity to capture the heat from the mine water sitting at about 24 degrees from a multiple perspectives, either from a heating up our own existing infrastructure to also heating up part of the town. And I think that in itself will create a revenue stream going forward. And one of the ideas we're looking at is to use that post-mine closure to keep the water treatment plant going. We're going to need a revenue stream for that. From a social point of view, I touched on the work that we're going to create. And we have regular interaction with our community. We're involved in the schools, all the different learning suppliers and facilities out there, local community support groups, and again, overwhelming support from our local community. So in summary, highest grade tin asset that's not in production, I think, which makes this very exciting, fully permitted, existing infrastructure. So essentially, You could look at it, this not a greenfields project because of that. The support that we have, the idea is that we're going to take all the tailings, and we've got a vast cavity down there which we could fill from a tailings perspective. So we're going to take it underground, robust economics from an NPV point of view and a all-in cost perspective. We have a huge opportunity to extend the mine life. There's opportunities. We planning to build a plant with increased capacity in mind. So we're planning to, the plant front end can manage 800,000. We're only going to put in 500,000 per year. The downstream can do 400. We're only going to put in 250. So we've left space in the plant capacity-wise to increase the capacity should that opportunity arise going forward. Yeah, so I'm not going to say a lot about the tin market. That's already been spoken about. But the opportunity to build a project in this current robust market, what an opportunity. Yeah, thank you very much.